In today's world, we talk a lot about what skills need to be developed and what exactly needs to be enhanced in ourselves to become more successful. This trend is generally understandable because the world is changing, everything is changing. Professions are changing, the education system is changing, and ultimately various types of coaches are emerging who talk about what is important today and what you specifically need to earn more money. Indeed, there is no smoke without fire, and the professions that were relevant just 10 years ago have simply evaporated. Our world is changing, technologies are arriving, and ultimately AI, ChatGPT, which will most likely cause a huge revolution in the near future. And for us as thinking people, a logical question arises. How can we always remain relevant and not miss this tectonic shift? How can we adapt to these massive changes and in the next 3, 5, 10 years earn money, become more successful, and thrive in all our endeavors? And here arises a logical question. What is more important, soft skills or hard skills? I think this is a very relevant topic because some people say you need to acquire hard skills, learn programming, study physics, mathematics, etc. Others say you need to develop yourself, improve soft skills, learn to meditate, communicate with other people, listen to your subtle emotional makeup. Where is the truth in this? As it seems to me, there simply is no absolute truth here because as hard skills were relevant 20, 30 years ago, and there was a need for programmers, engineers, and so on, they remain relevant today. The same can be said about soft skills. Communication has always been important. The skill to negotiate with people has always been necessary. Is it relevant now? Of course it is. So today, as I record this video, I want to share with you key skills, or rather I would call them habits, which in my opinion are the most essential and integral part of anyone who wants to succeed in this life. And these habits are particularly relevant for those who, as blunt as it may sound, do not want to be part of the gray mass, want to stand out, try to create a project, try to master different skills and professions. So today I will share with you 6 habits that, frankly speaking, have changed my life before and after. Certainly, this did not happen just like that. Looking back now, I can clearly understand and quantify what exactly helped me make a major breakthrough. What helped me start earning more money, surround myself with more interesting people, engage in more interesting projects, feel more free and happy. Let's go. So, the first most important habit, but to reveal it, I'll tell you a story. I don't know about you, but I remember very clearly my feelings when for the first times in life I managed to do something right, and it brought me results. For example, when I left university, my peers did not support me much. I felt very oppressed, unsure of myself, and doubted whether I was doing the right thing. But after some time, I managed to get a job. I started earning my salary, and at some points, it reached up to $7,000, $8,000, which at that time was phenomenal money for me. And I remember very clearly the feeling of how I began to feel and how I felt about my friends, peers, and university colleagues, so to speak. I was so, inspired. I didn't have a bloated ego then, but still I understood that I made the right decision, and those people who told me I was wrong were mistaken, and I was convinced that I was right. But then a rather interesting cyclical story happens. At some point, I decide to quit my job and focus all my attention on business. Naturally, at the moment when I submitted my resignation, none of my colleagues supported me. Most of them were shocked. My boss, Ksyusha, was also in total shock, saying, "Why? Where are you going?" Again, I doubted myself. I was not sure that I was making the right decision, the right action. After some time, I managed to start earning the first money in business. At first, I was involved in events. It was not much money, but still, I began to earn the income I had in employment. Then I started doing advertising and my income began to grow. And here's the question. What do you think? How did I feel at that moment? Naturally, I felt even more uplifted and began to understand that I made the right decision again, while the others made the wrong one, and this cycle repeated several times. And at one fine moment, it led me to a very clear realization of one simple thing. I definitely know what's right and the others don't. And what's the big deal? I make the right decision. Everything is great. Everything is good. But the nuance is that at some point in time, I began to feel like the smartest person in the world, and any advice that came to me was simply dismissed. Moreover, any information that came into my life was always subject to huge criticism. Naturally, there is no problem in this locally because all problems emerge over distance. The moment you don't listen to people, don't accept new information, you close yourself off, stop developing. You start having problems with colleagues, problems with partners, problems with clients, problems everywhere, for one simple reason. You think you are the smartest, and that is the root of all problems. In general, life played a very cruel joke on me at that time, because on the one hand, everything worked out for me. I got results very quickly, easily, and felt that I was doing the right thing. But because of this, gradually a very nice crown grew on my head, which eventually brought me new problems. Therefore, habit number 1, never think that you are smarter than others. Even if it seems to you that some fool who doesn't understand what you're talking about is sitting in front of you, you must always be open. When meeting any person in life, even if this person came across to you by chance, I ask myself the question, what benefit can I get from communicating with this person? What can I learn from him? And it doesn't always have to be some sacred secrets. He doesn't always have to understand how the stock market works or team management. Perhaps someone among these people simply takes better photos than you. Someone dresses a little better. Someone knows geography well, and someone, perhaps, doesn't know much, but is very empathetic and sensitive, and they will teach you exactly this quality. And it's the habit of never feeling smarter than others that opens huge gates to information, communication, interaction, new ideas, and naturally, to development, and consequently, to money and breakthroughs. So, habit number 1 is to never consider yourself smarter than others. Habit number 2. I don't know about you, but I vividly remember starting my first businesses and how I experienced the events associated with them. Even the example of leaving university or quitting a job, I distinctly remember my feelings when I resigned from my first job. I walked home smoking one cigarette after another, trying to calm down. The same with my first businesses. I remember organizing events, and when we hosted a party and the hall was half empty, I knew problems were ahead. I was paralyzed by tension, fear, and potential consequences. I was young, passionate, and energetic, but I constantly smoked, drank a lot of coffee, and calmed myself with beer or cheap wine to normalize. My tolerance to stress was so low that if I faced a problem in business, I understood that I would lose money or an employee had quit, I literally couldn't sleep. So, habit number 2, without which you literally can't achieve anything significant in this world, is high stress tolerance. And here, someone will say that some have a natural tolerance, while others are bad at handling stress. But I completely disagree. I believe it's a skill and a habit, because I distinctly remember times when any business problem would derail me for several days. And now, no matter what happens in my life, in my business, as Mikhail Maratovich Friedman says, once my head touches the pillow, I instantly fall asleep. Why? Because I clearly understand that in a half-asleep state, I definitely won't solve any problems. And any problem that happened in my life is solvable. How can you turn off your thoughts when disaster strikes? But in reality, when you start working on it and approach the issue consciously, you realize it's not that hard. It's just a working process, like going to the gym. It's simply a skill to shift your attention to more important things. And for me, it's more important to go to bed, turn off my mind, sleep, rest, and wake up fresh the next day, to dive back into the fray, start solving problems, tackling tasks, and moving forward. If I don't do this and spend the whole night thinking, worrying, sleeping poorly, then the next day I will be just like boiled crap, incapable of making any serious decisions. So, habit number 2, without which it's guaranteed impossible to achieve any high result, because there will be problems 100% in life. 100% in this activity, you will face great stress. You need high tolerance to this stress. So, habit number 3, and precisely, a skill, and in my view, one of the most important qualities for the next decade, which incidentally seems to be in short supply in society right now. I don't know how you spent your childhood, but I remember mine very clearly. We communicated and socialized all day long, in the forest, on the streets, in huts and other places. We had no phones, no computers. All we did was interact with each other. And thanks to this, the habit I'm going to talk about now, in my opinion, isn't innate for me, but has been developed since childhood. But the problem with modern society is that we spend so much time on our phones, on the internet, in social networks, that we simply lose our abilities and the skills we acquired in childhood. I am talking about empathy and charisma. And I repeat, in my opinion, these are the skills that will be particularly in demand in the coming decades. Yes, of course, the world is increasingly moving into devices and the internet, ChatGPT, AI, and we are discussing how soon robots will do all the work for us and we will just sit at home and pick our noses. But honestly, we often rush things. And I think this will happen, but not so soon. But the skill of empathy, the skill of charisma, we are losing much faster in today's reality than we think. And today, it seems absolutely normal to meet a person who cannot communicate at all. They don't hear you, they don't know how to ask the right questions, they don't know how to manage themselves, they simply don't know how to maintain distance when communicating with another person. And here arises the question, how can you succeed in life if you're not empathetic? If you don't feel people, if you don't see their boundaries? And the main thought that follows is that if you can't feel what other people feel, how can you feel yourself? The answer is simple. You can't. And I am convinced that all the big and interesting affairs, as we're resolved in real life in the past, sitting at a big round table with other people, will be resolved in exactly the same way. And I believe that developed empathy and charisma not only give you an advantage in the modern world, but they simply send you into the stratosphere. Because most people today simply don't remember this and don't think about it. They are focused on completely different things that cloud their minds. They think about how to get more views, how to get more likes. And that's what really clutters their consciousness. But real life and real affairs happen right here and now, in real life, in communication with other people. And for this, you need to be very sensitive and understand what other people think and want. And this skill, this habit, in my opinion, will be a huge guarantee of success in the next decade. By the way, my dear friends, since we've touched on this topic, I'm sure many of you have encountered it. If so, please share in the comments. It's interesting to read your stories. Tell us about your experience, about how you found yourself, about some projects, about your craftsmanship. Share in the comments, it's very, very interesting. Well, let's move on. Habit number 5. I started today's video with an example of a crown on the head, and moreover, I mentioned it in previous videos. And to be honest, I think that everyone in life, sooner or later, encounters the presence of that crown. And if, of course, they do at least something in this world. Although, often, even the laziest person somehow has this heavy burden. But the nuance is that often many confuse the crown and ego. And when they see a person with a strong ego, they say that he has a crown on his head. But I fundamentally disagree with this, and this will be the focus of my 5th point today. Because the crown is not just an ego. The crown is a huge, inflated ego that blinds you, that simply blinded your eyes when you see nothing and only hear yourself. But having a strong ego is a very important point. And this is the fifth habit, to have a strong ego. Because what is ego? Ego is what often can tell you, no, Sasha, do as you feel, not as you are told. Ego is what allows you to say no to different opportunities that are not on the vector of your life. Ego is what allows you to do work and evaluate it at market value or even higher, and not perform your work at half the market price. A strong ego is what allows you to send toxic clients, partners, employees away. It's what allows you to set certain frames and boundaries of your life. And I can confidently say that absolutely every person who has succeeded in this life has a strong ego. Why? Because if they didn't have this ego, they would simply be leveled and pulled into that same gray mass, where everything is the same for everyone. Because when you try something, for example, finishing one business, starting another, quitting a job to try your hand at creativity, launching a YouTube channel, or starting to play the guitar, in such moments, there will always be a huge number of people in life who will disagree with you, who will not believe in you, who will belittle you. And if you don't have a strong ego, then who will protect you? Who will tell you that you are on the right path doing the right things? Therefore, the fifth most important habit is to develop a strong ego in yourself, or rather to build it, but control it and make it work for the good and not turn into a vegan crown. And actually, it's quite simple. It's quite easy to be the person who has a strong ego, who can make firm decisions, finish a matter, not bow down to other people, not degrade oneself, but at the same time be open, be kind, respectfully treat other people, and wish to do good. At one time, I didn't have this understanding, and I divided it roughly this way. Either you are a narcissist, an egomaniac who doesn't give a damn about everyone, who wipes his feet on everyone, or you are a doormat upon which everyone wipes their feet. But in reality, the world, as they say, is not divided into black and white. There are a huge number of halftones, and the same applies here. It is very important to develop your ego, to feel it, to hear yourself, to be firm, but at the same time not to cultivate a crown and be open to this world. And then everything will be fine.